Hi everyone, hello. Hi all of you out there who are waiting for me. How have you been? Yes, so we're meeting after like Friday, yeah, this being Monday. I hope you had a nice weekend. And I welcome you to the Hindu Editorial Analysis. I'm your English mentor, Sana Jaffrey. I think you know me by now. Okay, so how is your reading journey shaping up? I very much hope that with the inputs that you're getting from me and the encouragement and the regular nudge that we give you on a daily basis to read editorials, I hope that's getting you to move in the right direction. It's many times about taking the right initiatives, starting somewhere, setting targets for yourself, and persevering throughout against the odds. That is what is going to usher your preparation in the right direction, right? Hey Storm, hi, how are you? And everybody else out there, welcome to the session. Okay, so yes, this thing that we're doing today is a very interesting editorial and something that you must know because not just let's say limited only to what's happening in our country, but what's happening in our neighboring countries is equally important to know. And apart from that, of course, any nicely written article and analyzing things about that is going to be a very, very fecund and a productive exercise. Hi, there. Hello. How have you been? So, this is about the unrest, the uproar, the outrage that is taking place in Bangladesh and looks very relatable. There are some issues which are always contentious, and reservation is one of them, right? So, हमने हमारी कंट्री में तो कितना कुछ bloodshed देखा है, especially because of reservation system. So, this again is happening in Bangladesh, and the death toll is rising. Okay, many students, many young protesters have actually lost their lives also. Fine, because they were hacked by the police, and a very very upsetting scenario comes in front of us from these quarters of Bangladesh. Okay. Yes, so I have taken this up from the text and context page because this is equally important, I would say, and this is being a burning issue. Let's dive deeper into this, right? So, एक सबसे important चीज, I used the word contentious if you've noticed. Something which is contentious. As I told you, reservation system has always been very contentious. इससे ही एक बहुत ही interesting idiomatic expression आता है जिसको हम कहते हैं bone of contention. And there's another one on the similar lines, which is apple of discord. Fine. Hi, Purva. How are you doing? So, my concern here is, do you know about the word contention? If we only focus on this word contention, it has two meanings. The first meaning is it's an agitation or a conflict. Okay. Contentious कोई issue है which is marked by contention. So, a lot of heated debates and agitation, disturbance, conflict, that is called contentious, right? तो एक तो कंटेंशन हो गया आपका हीटेड डिबेट या कॉन्फ्लिक्ट टाइप का, ठीक है, और डिस्प्यूट, वी कैन से डिस्प्यूट, है ना, दैट इज कंटेंशन. दूसरा कंटेंशन जिसके बारे में लोग अक्सर नहीं जानते, which you will come across in your passages, is that which of the option strengthens the contention of the author. What is the contention made by the author? So this is where contention has a very different meaning, class. And this means, here it means a claim or an assertion. बिल्कुल हम controversy कह सकते हैं उज़ैर, because anything which is contentious tends to be controversial because it creates a lot of dispute and conflict, right? So ये दो मतलब होते हैं. When I say this is a very contentious matter, that means something which will create a lot of discord, which will lead to conflicts and heated arguments and altercations and skirmishes. This is how we use the word contentious. अब यहाँ पे ये एक बहुत प्यारा expression bone of contention, it's an idiom. तो idiom क्या होता है? नहीं, कंक्लूजन नहीं पूर्वा, कंटेंशन सिंपली क्लेम है, मतलब ऑथर का दावा, मतलब ऑथर क्या पॉइंट बना रहा है, व्हाट claim is he making about something, what is he trying to tell you about something. Okay, उसने अगर अपना आइडिया पुट अप किया है तो क्या आइडिया है, ऑथर का बांग्लादेश प्रोटेस्ट पे क्या क्लेम है, उनका क्या दावा है. ठीक है. ओके. सो कमिंग टू दिस बोन ऑफ कंटेंशन, बहुत प्यारा बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग सा इडियम है. इसका मतलब होता है फसाद की जड़. एंड apple of discord, I hope you know discord. Discord is also disagreement. When there is disagreement, when there is conflict, when there is dispute, that is when we call there is discord. So even when we say apple of discord, it also means the same, fasad ki jad. So all I'm trying to tell you here is that here, even in Bangladesh, the situation that is playing out, it's very much being caused by a contentious issue, which is a reservation system. So let's read the passage. Okay. Why have students in Bangladesh took to the streets? Why is the 30% quota for freedom fighters and the descendants an emotive matter for the Awami League? How did the protests turn violent? Have the quotas been misused? ओके तो बहुत ही प्यारा सा इसका ये बायलाइन है जो ऑटोमेटिकली हमें बहुत कुछ बता रहा है इसके बारे में, सब्जेक्ट मैटर के बारे में. तो मुद्दा ये है कि जो बांग्लादेश में जो करंटली प्रॉब्लम हो रही है वो ये हो रही है कि 30% ऑफ द कोटा हैज बीन सेट असाइड. Here we're talking about jobs. Okay, so 30% of the quota has been set aside for freedom fighters and their descendants. And 30% is a huge chunk, you would agree with me. And this is being persisted for years, like it's been a long time, this has endured. And the Awami League, जो शेख हसीना जो उनकी अभी currently head of the state हैं, ठीक है, उनकी पार्टी है आवामी लीग. एंड व्हाई इज इट सच एन इमोटिव मैटर? नाउ वी कम टू अ वेरी नाइस वर्ड, इमोटिव. व्हाट डज इट मीन बाय इमोटिव? एनीथिंग व्हिच क्रिएट्स और arouses emotions in you is called emotive. This is an emotive movie. That means watching it you may feel very emotional. Okay, anything that actually calls up your emotions or evokes emotions in you. तो मतलब ये मुद्दा reservation का इतना दिल के करीब क्यों है आवामी लीग के? What is with it that it is the president, the prime minister, like the entire I would say the heads are holding it so dear and near to them. तो वो पूरा आपको इसके बारे में पता चलता है. एक बार जिस्ट जो दी हुई है वो जरा क्विकली पढ़ते हैं. The seeds of the present quota reform movement lies in the smaller anti-quota movement of 2018. On March 8, 2018, the Bangladesh High Court rejected a petition challenging the legality of the quota system in the country that had existed since the early 1970s. अब अभी जो हो रहा है, ये जो पूरा कोटा रिफॉर्म मूवमेंट हो रहा है, ठीक है, एंड दिस इज टेकिंग प्लेस. The seeds were sown long back in the year 2018. ठीक है, तो तब at that point of time Bangladesh High Court had rejected a petition challenging the legality of the quota system. उस टाइम पर एक पिटिशन आया कि यार ये जो कोटा सिस्टम है, this is sham, ये 1970 से चला आ रहा है, इसको हम चैलेंज करते, इसको खत्म करो. तो कोर्ट ने, हाई कोर्ट ने उस टाइम पर उसको पिटिशन को रद्द कर दिया था, रिजेक्ट कर दिया था. In this backdrop, Miss Hasina declared that she would maintain the quota for the descendants of the veterans of the Liberation War. जो Liberation War हुई थी बांग्लादेश की, जब पाकिस्तान से के साथ में अटैक हुई थी, उसमें इंडिया ने भी हेल्प किया था बांग्लादेश को. तो तब से जो वॉर थी और उस टाइम पे जो वॉर में जिन लोगों ने पार्टिसिपेट किया था, जो फ्रीडम फाइटर्स थे, है ना, ये उनके डिसेंडेंट्स को कोटा देने की बात है. Bangladesh's political system has been dominated by Ms. Hasina and the Awami League for a long time. There has been a growing sentiment among opposition parties and critics that the quota for freedom fighters was essentially an attempt to create a group of close supporters for the Awami League within the bureaucracy or civil service who would perpetuate the Awami League's rule. Now, what is the problem with this issue? Why is this such a burning issue? Because there are so many people, the critics of this reservation, and along with that, the opposition parties who have been regularly trounced by the Awami League. These parties also feel that This reservation system is actually a kind of a Trojan horse. This has been used, misused by the government to perpetuate the Awami League's rule. How? वो आपको पैसेज पढ़ के एडिटोरियल पढ़ के डिटेल में पता चलेगा कि किस तरीके से इसको यूज किया जा रहा है ओवर एंड ओवर। ठीक है। क्यों? ताकि इन्हीं के पार्टी के लोग जो हैं वो ब्यूरोक्रेसी में बने रहे, वो टॉप गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स बन के इनके लिए काम करते रहे। सो द एलिगेशंस आर सच दैट दिस इज नॉट अ फेयर सिस्टम एट ऑल, दिस इज बीइंग मिसयूज्ड। दीज आर द एलिगेशंस बाय द क्रिटिक्स। ऑथर ने अपना कोई भी व्यू पॉइंट यहाँ पे नहीं दिया है। मिस हसीना टर्म द प्रोटेस्टर्स हु अपोज्ड कोटा फॉर फ्रीडम फाइटर्स फैमिलीज एज रज़ाकार्स और ट्रेटर। हु इज अ ट्रेटर? ट्रेटर कौन होता है? जल्दी से बताओ। ट्रोजन हॉर्स, पीआरएक्स मैं आपको अभी बताऊंगी। ट्रोजन हॉर्स बहुत प्यारा एक्सप्रेशन है, ये अभी सून पैसेज में आएगा। चलो मैं आपको बता देती हूँ। ट्रोजन हॉर्स जब हम किसी को कहते हैं ना, मतलब होता है कि हम स्ट्रैटेजिकली किसी, कोई इंसान डिसीव कर रहा है, हमको चीट कर रहा है स्ट्रैटेजी करके, या धोखाधड़ी कर रहा है बड़े क्लेवरली। इट्स अ प्लॉय, इट्स अ प्लॉट टू डिसीव अस एंड चीट अस, इट्स अ स्ट्रैटेजम, उसको हम कहते हैं इट्स अ ट्रोजन हॉर्स। ओके। एंड ट्रेटर इज अ गद्दार। वेरी नाइस। तो जो शेख हसीना है, उन्होंने जो प्रोटेस्टर्स हैं विच वर मोस्टली यंग स्टूडेंट स्टडिंग वाला जो अपना पूरा कम्युनिटी है, उनको क्या बोल दिया कि तुम लोग तो ट्रेटर्स हो, तुम लोग तो गद्दार हो, क्योंकि ये फ्रीडम फाइटर्स थे एंड यू आर प्रोटेस्टिंग अगेंस्ट द कोटा गिवन टू देम। ओके। एंड दिस एक्चुअली agitated the crowd, and that is why they were out on the streets. Fine. Traitors who supported the Pakistani military in carrying out large-scale atrocities against women and men in 1971. Right? Somebody who betrays. Right? अब देखो पढ़ना शुरू करते हैं। हमें जिस तो समझ में आ गया है, but let's kind of start reading it. Fine? Is the font size good enough? I think now it's much better. चलो ठीक है। The story so far. At least 130 people have been killed in the student protest clashes against quotas for government jobs in Bangladesh. 130 लोग अब तक मारे गए, and this is the official tally that the government is telling you. So we don't really know what is the real picture like. It could be even more gory and ghastly, right? We don't know. It could be more gory, ghastly, gruesome, है ना? एट्रोसिटीज का मतलब होता है अत्याचार, जुल्म। ठीक है। कोई भी ऐसी एक्टिविटीज जो किसी को टॉर्चर देती हैं, उनको एट्रोसिटीज बोलते हैं। व्हेन यू आर टॉर्मेंटिंग, टॉर्चरिंग पीपल, राइट, यू आर बीइंग एट्रोशियस। तो 130 पीपल अब तक मर चुके हैं इन द स्टूडेंट प्रोटेस्ट क्लैशेस, फाइन, अगेंस्ट कोटास फॉर गवर्नमेंट जॉब्स। जॉब्स की तो वैसे भी मारामारी रही है, और बांग्लादेश में भी डिवाइड बढ़ रहा है। देयर हैज बीन अ लॉट ऑफ divide between the haves and the have nots, and there is unemployment. So that's hence, people are so concerned about reservation and government jobs. In a new development, the appellate division of the Supreme Court dismissed the order of the High Court that had precipitated the crisis and reserved 93% of the seats in government services for merit, allocating just 5% jobs for freedom fighters and their descendants. Now, what has happened? This is a new development that the appellate division of the Supreme Court, appellate division refers to a smaller body within the Supreme Court that handles the appeals. So normally there are so many lower courts from which when people are not satisfied with the judgment of the lower courts, they appeal to the Supreme Court. So the appellate division refers to that body जो उनका पूरा केस सुनती है और उसको पूरा एग्जीक्यूट करती है और अपना वो फाइनल वर्डिक्ट देती है। तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने क्या कर दिया? डिसमिस कर दिया, मतलब रिजेक्ट कर दिया। क्या रिजेक्ट कर दिया? द ऑर्डर ऑफ द हाई कोर्ट दैट हैड प्रेसिपिटेटेड द क्राइसिस। नाउ वी डोंट नो व्हाट प्रिसाइसली वाज द ऑर्डर ऑफ द हाई कोर्ट, राइट, बट व्हाटएवर इट वाज, वो अभी हम पढ़ेंगे तो हमें पता चलेगा, उसको रिजेक्ट कर दिया गया है, और इस हाई कोर्ट के ऑर्डर से ही ये क्राइसिस प्रेसिपिटेट हुआ था। तो क्लास, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय प्रेसिपिटेट? नाउ दिस इज एन ऑफन वेरी मिसअंडरस्टूड और मिसजज्ड टर्म। ठीक है। PRX, आई होप एट्रोसिटीज वर्ड आपको क्लियर हो गया है ना? आई होप इट्स क्लियर, आपको समझ में आ गया है ना? ओके। तो व्हाट इज प्रेसिपिटेट? टू प्रेसिपिटेट समथिंग, देखो एक तो प्रेसिपिटेट होता है, प्रेसिपिटेशन जब हम कहते हैं साइंटिफिकली टर्म्स में दैट रेफर्स टू रेनफॉल, तो प्रेसिपिटेशन रेनफॉल। फिर साइंस में ही हम जब वो, इफ यू रिमेंबर वी यूज्ड टू परफॉर्म एक्सपेरिमेंट्स इन द केमिस्ट्री लैब, तो देयर यू नो यू गेट अ प्रेसिपिटेट, ओके, देयर इज अ लिक्विड एंड देयर इज अ काइंड ऑफ अ फ्रॉथ, तो वो जो भी मटेरियल्स होते हैं वो थोड़े से प्रेसिपिटेट के फॉर्म में ऊपर आ जाते हैं, वो प्रेसिपिटेट होता है। बट मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम इंग्लिश में whenever we say this has precipitated it, we mean this has caused something suddenly, caused something suddenly. Okay, so precipitated the crisis, this is something which led to the crisis, which was a cause for the crisis, or it created the crisis. I hope it is clear. और इन्होंने अब क्या किया, they changed the quota system. Now they have fixed 93% of the seats on merit basis. So merit basis पर 93% करती है. They've only earmarked 5% of the jobs of freedom fighters and their descendants. तो ये बहुत अच्छी बात हुई. कोटा कम हो गया 30% से 5%. फिलहाल अभी सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कर दिया है. A 1% quota each has been allocated for tribes, differently abled people and sexual minorities. Fine, this is the crux of the judgment. Now let us understand the background. What do the protests mean for the Sheikh Hasina government? The anti-quota protests have come at a time when Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was settling down to power after winning a controversial election in January that gave her an unprecedented fourth consecutive term. It's the fourth time that Sheikh Hasina has become the PM of Bangladesh, right? And this is unprecedented. What do you mean by unprecedented? जिसका कोई precedent नहीं, मतलब ऐसी चीज जो first time हो रही है. It's happening for the first time. Never has it happened ever before in the history of Bangladesh, right? So something that is unprecedented, it's happening for the first time. So अभी जनवरी में इलेक्शन हुआ था एंड शी वाज सेटलिंग डाउन टू पावर, एंड तभी एकदम से शी वाज हिट बाय एंटी कोटा प्रोटेस्ट, व्हिच वाज ऑफ कोर्स लीस्ट एक्सपेक्टेड. मिस हसीना वाज अवेयर दैट द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज दिस टाइम वाज हाई इन्फ्लेशन एंड अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट, and had started looking for solutions from partner countries like India and China, as she wanted to increase employment opportunities in the manufacturing sector. So she knew that yeah, inflation is a burning issue, and unemployment too. And so she was seeking solutions from India and China, and she wanted to spur or increase employment opportunities in the manufacturing sector. The agitation. What is agitation? The disturbance, okay, protests, ये क्या होती है, agitation होते हैं, right? I'm in an agitated mind right now, मतलब disturbed mind. But then when you say agitation in this way, you normally mean some or the other kind of a conflict or a protest. This, coupled with her own intemperate remarks, has created one of the biggest crises that she has faced since coming to power for her first term in 1996. इनटेम्परेट रिमार्क्स क्या होता है? टेम्परेट क्या होता है? देखो, टेम्परेट होता है बहुत ही बैलेंस्ड, मॉडरेट. आई होप आपको याद होगा, आपने ज्योग्राफी में और साइंस में पढ़ा होगा टेम्परेट क्लाइमेट. तो टेम्परेट क्लाइमेट होता है वेरी बैलेंस्ड काइंड ऑफ क्लाइमेट, व्हिच इज वेरी मॉडरेट, व्हिच इज नॉट वेरी एक्सट्रीम. बट देन इफ वी से टेम्परेट remarks, temperate remarks would be very balanced and neutral remarks, but intemperate remarks would be very biting, they would be acerbic, they would be harsh. So she made some harsh remarks also, and of course this protest was very much growing up like a whirlpool, fine, and this actually escalated the matter, and it's the first time that she's facing such protests. इतना ज़्यादा पहली बार हो रहा है. How did the agitation begin? The seeds of the present quota reform movement lies in the smaller anti-quota movement of 2018. Okay. On March 8, 2018, the Bangladesh High Court rejected a petition challenging the legality of the quota system in the country that had existed since the early 1970s. So जैसा मैंने आपको जिसमें पढ़ के बताया था कि way back in 2018 क्या हुआ कि बांग्लादेश हाई कोर्ट जो था उसके पास एक पिटिशन आई जिसने बोला कि यार ये कोटा बेकार है, इसको चैलेंज करो, दिस इज नॉट लीगल, दिस इज नॉट फेयर, राइट? तो उस टाइम पर बांग्लादेश हाई कोर्ट ने रिजेक्ट कर दिया. उन्होंने बोला कि नहीं, ये तो चलेगा. इन दिस बैकड्रॉप, इस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ही मिस हसीना डिक्लेयर्ड दैट शी वुड मेंटेन द कोटा फॉर द डिसेंडेंट्स ऑफ द वेटरन्स ऑफ द लिबरेशन वॉर. What do you mean by veterans? Veterans are very senior people. अमिताभ बच्चन इज अ वेटरन इन द बॉलीवुड. ठीक है, तो सीनियर जो होते हैं उनको बोलते हैं. तो शी सेड कि नहीं भाई, कोटा तो रहेगा फॉर द डिसेंडेंट्स. डिसेंडेंट्स कौन होते हैं? प्रोजेनी, मतलब sons and grandsons, daughters, right, grandchildren, मतलब आपके क्या कहते हैं, वंशज, है ना. तो descendants of the veterans of the liberation war. It was broadly understood that this quota, which was started by her father Sheikh Mujib, was an emotional matter for her. अब तब भी जब ये मुद्दा उठा था, शेख हसीना very categorically said that no, we are going to maintain the quota for these people. They are the descendants of the freedom fighters of the liberation war. Now, why was she being so adamant about it? The reason is that there is an emotional angle. This thing was started by her father, Sheikh Mujib. Fine. But this declaration of support for the quota for the descendants of the liberation war triggered a major agitation by students. But the moment she declared this, कि नहीं, I am going to stand for this and this will continue, it triggered an agitation by students. Students started protesting. Responding to the agitation, Miss Hasina cancelled all quotas in the Bangladesh civil service through an executive order. अब क्या हुआ, जैसे ही उन्होंने बोला कि नहीं कोटा तो नहीं हटेगा, तो स्टूडेंट्स केम आउट protesting. Okay, there was an agitation. Now, how she responded to it, she cancelled all quotas in Bangladesh civil service through an executive order. एक special order निकाला, सारे कोटे कैंसिल कर दिए. कि मतलब what is the implication of this? इससे क्या पता चलता है कि अच्छा ठीक है, तुमको फ्रीडम फाइटर का नहीं चाहिए तो कोई भी कोटा नहीं होगा. अगर कोटा होगा तो फ्रीडम फाइटर्स को मिलेगा, नहीं होगा तो किसी को भी नहीं मिलेगा. इंटरेस्टिंग. दिस वाज अ जोल्ट. जोल्ट क्या होता है? धक्का लगना, अ काइंड ऑफ अ सेटबैक, है ना. A kind of an unexpected shock. This was a jolt for the students who just wanted a reform of the quota system and not abolition. उन्हें abolition नहीं चाहिए था. They did not want a complete abolition or cancellation or removal of quota system. They only wanted a reform or a slight change. It was clear that if freedom fighters were not to get any quota, then no one else would either. अगर freedom fighter को नहीं मिलेगा तो किसी को भी नहीं मिलेगा. तो ये देखो, ये टेनासिटी उनकी थी, ये उनका एक बहुत ही ऑब्ड्यूरेट नेचर समझ में आया, स्टबर्न नेचर समझ में आया, जिद्दीपन. During the next 2 years, over several rounds of discussion, Ms. Hasina stuck to her decision to abolish all quotas, and in 2020, the executive order became operational. She was like, the सारे negotiation के rounds हुए, she was adamant, she was very adamant, she was like, नहीं, अब quota सारे cancel, okay, and this became operational in 2020. What role did the court play in the quota agitation? अब court की क्या भूमिका रही, उसका क्या role रहा? On June 5, 2024, the Bangladesh High Court nullified Ms. Hasina's executive order that had dissolved all quotas. उन्होंने उसको null and void करार दिया, उन्होंने उसको cancel कर दिया, ठीक है, nullified. Okay. This action by the judiciary restored all quotas in the Bangladesh civil service. जैसे उन्होंने cancel किया, तो जितने भी कोटा थे सब क्या हो गए, रिस्टोर हो गए, मतलब रिवाइव हो गए, दोबारा से एप्लीकेबल हो गए. दिस जुडिशियल इंटरवेंशन, इंटरवेंशन क्या होता है, काइंड ऑफ एन एक्शन दैट इज टेकन अप, राइट. इंटरफियर कर रहे हो आप, इंटरवेंशन, आप कोई भी स्टेप ले रहे हो, कोई एक्शन कर रहे हो. दिस जुडिशियल इंटरवेंशन वाज ब्रॉट अपॉन बाय एन अपील फाइल्ड बाय द डिसेंडेंट ऑफ अ फ्रीडम फाइटर एंड 6 other individuals. So of course the stakeholders, these people who would be the beneficiaries of quota, ठीक है ना, ये कुछ फ्रीडम फाइटर के डिसेंडेंट्स थे और भी कुछ लोग थे, इन्होंने चैलेंज किया था कि यार ये क्या हो गया, इन्होंने तो बिल्कुल सारे ही कोटा हटा दिए, ठीक है. तो दे चैलेंज्ड एंड द कोर्ट एक्सेप्टेड, एंड कोर्ट ने क्या किया, इनके ऑर्डर को कैंसिल कर दिया, तो सारे कोटास क्या फिर से एप्लीकेबल हो गए. रिस्पॉन्डिंग टू द हाई कोर्ट्स वर्डिक्ट, वर्डिक्ट मतलब जजमेंट. आई होप यू नो वर्डिक्ट. वर्डिक्ट इज जजमेंट और डिसीजन. The government filed an appeal with the appellate division of the Supreme Court. अब गवर्नमेंट ने अपने ऊपर ले लिया, अच्छा हमारा तुमने ऑर्डर कैंसिल किया, तो दे अप्लाइड टू द सुप्रीम कोर्ट. It became apparent, apparent is obvious, it became obvious, dikh raha tha, that since the court had brought back the quota system, Miss Hasina would try and ensure that the earlier system of 30% quota for descendants of freedom fighters is reintroduced in the new quota system. Now, public who was watching this entire game, they realized that now that quota, ऐसा लग रहा है, seemingly would be back in force, then obviously Miss Hasina would try that it restores to the usual 30% wala quota, which the public did not want, right? This triggered the current protest. So lately this has happened, and that's the reason why people started protesting. Okay, बहुत ज्यादा कि यार ये तो नहीं चलेगा, फिर से कोटा आ रहा है, 30% नहीं चाहिए. Okay, so hence the protest. Appellate division refers to a sub body, okay, in the Supreme Court. ठीक है, जो केसेस वगैरह हियर करती है, टेक्निकल टर्म है, जार्गन है. ओके, एडजॉइंट टाइप का एक मीनिंग निकल के आता है एपलेट का. द एपलेट डिवीजन ऑफ द सुप्रीम कोर्ट then issued an order halting, halt is to stop, the high court's order till the government's appeal was fully heard. तो फिर उन्होंने बोला कि अच्छा ठीक है, जब गवर्नमेंट ने सुप्रीम कोर्ट को अप्रोच किया है ना, तो उन्होंने बोला कि ठीक है, अभी आपके ऑर्डर को अभी हम हॉल्ट कर रहे हैं, अभी स्टॉप कर रहे हैं, लेट द हियरिंग बी ओवर. ओके, गवर्नमेंट की अपील को हम पूरी तरह से सुनेंगे, फिर जजमेंट हम करेंगे. मिस हसीना अपील टू द स्टूडेंट्स टू अलाउ द सुप्रीम कोर्ट्स appellate division to complete the hearing, but meanwhile the students were running amok and they were being very very rebellious. Okay. However, there was uncertainty about the judiciary's decisions. Still not very clear whom the judiciary is going to favor. So the students were beyond control. They were completely out of control. And Ms. Hasina appealed the students to wait. Students wanted the Prime Minister to consult them and other stakeholders and come up with an inclusive quota system and implement the same through an executive order. Now, students expected कि आप हमसे बात करो, सारे स्टेक होल्डर से बात करो and come up with a well-rounded, a balanced and an inclusive quota system. What is inclusive? जो सबको इंक्लूड करके चलेगा ना, बैलेंस तरीके से होगा. ऐसा नहीं कि किसी को तुमने हटाई दिया और किसी को तुमने एकदम सर पे बिठा लिया. Not like that. It was felt that if Ms. Hasina could abolish the quota system as she did in 2018, she could also bring in a quota as per the demand of the protesters. So people felt कि यार जैसे आप abolish कर सकते थे, वैसे ही आप लेके भी तो आ सकते हो ना. तो why don't you come up with an executive order and do that? At the core of the negotiations was the concern of the protesters about the 30% quota for freedom fighters and their descendants, and the possibility that Ms. Hasina would bring back the quota for freedom fighters in jobs through either an appellate tribunal or executive decision, which would limit the availability of merit-based jobs. Now, here, all that it was happening, people were fearing that, Miss Hasina has multiple options through which, if she wants to bring in 30% quota, she would go to any length. She has a host of options available, so she could get it done her own way. Okay? So, hence, there was so much of unrest and mistrust among the protesters. Okay. What triggered the अब clash क्यों होने लग गया, violence क्यों होने लग गया? In the backdrop of the hearing in the appellate division in the protest, Ms. Hasina termed the protesters who opposed quota for freedom fighters' families as razakars or traitors, who supported the Pakistani military in carrying out large-scale atrocities against men and women in 1971. अब ये हो क्या गया कि जब ये सब हियरिंग और प्रोटेस्ट चल रही थी, तो मिस हसीना केम अप विद सम इनटेम्परेट रिमार्क्स, वेरी acerbic remarks, where she called all of them as traitors, that you are going against the freedom fighters, so you supported the Pakistani military. They were so atrocious against our men and women back then in 1971. So this remark actually enraged. What is rage? Rage is extreme anger. Fine, wrath. Wrath. Rage is wrath. Extreme anger. Fine. So they were enraged. The student community was enraged. यार ये क्या है मतलब? This is such a brazen allegation against us. The students demanded an apology from her and occupied public squares. उन्होंने बोला माफी मांगो, आपने ऐसा कैसे बोला हमारे लिए, and they occupied public squares. The situation escalated, बढ़ गई, okay, as the police and rapid action battalion cracked down on protesters. And now the usual thing, cracking down on the protesters by flogging them, beating up, or whatever means applicable. So अब जैसे पता चल रहा है 130 से ऊपर लोग मर चुके हैं, तो that means police was also they opened fire at the protesters, right? Itni the situation became out of control. The Awami League, the ruling party of Bangladesh, was also accused of using its student leaders to crack down on the protests. तो उन्होंने अपने जो स्टूडेंट लीडर्स थे और जो उनका पूरा विंग था उनको भी यूज किया just to completely quell the protests, quell them. quell करना किसी चीज को बंद करना, quelling fire, quelling protest. This led to further confrontation and finally the military had to be pressed into service. Military lag gayi kyunki confrontation बढ़ता रहा. As violence spiraled out of control, spiral out. देखिए ना कितना प्यारा expression. ये spiral out मतलब it's increasing, it's funneling out, it's increasing. As violence spiraled out of control, the protesters were offered a dialogue with the law minister, but protesters refused, stating no dialogue while bloodshed continues. ठीक है, तो ये कितनी ऐसी सिचुएशन आ गई कि इन्होंने बोला भी तो क्या आप जरा डायलॉग करो, बातचीत करो, बट स्टूडेंट्स ने क्लियरली बोला कि नहीं, जब तक ब्लडशेड है कोई डायलॉग नहीं होगा. लेट्स क्विकली ब्रीज थ्रू द रिमेनिंग पैसेज. What is quota for freedom fighters? After the war of 1971, Bangladesh was remodeled, and one of the main planks of the creation of was Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's promise to do justice to those who had sacrificed and endured atrocities by the Pakistani military. Right? अब ये कोटा क्या है? 1971 की वॉर में जो पूरा स्टेट उनका बना, द मेन प्लैंक्स, द बेस, द पिवट ऑफ द क्रिएशन वाज कि जिन लोगों ने अपनी लाइफ सैक्रिफाइस करी है उनको कुछ मिलना चाहिए. In 1972, immediately after returning to Dhaka, he resolved to create a quota for freedom fighters. Apart from freedom fighters, Mujib also gave a quota for the women who were tortured by Pakistani soldiers. After the assassination of Sheikh Mujib, the quota system was diluted and extended to unrepresented sections of the country. But जब उनकी डेथ हुई, उनका assassination हुआ, तो at that time quota system पूरा dilute हो गया and it was given to other unrepresented groups in the country. Thus Bangladesh's varying and evolving quota system spanned freedom fighters, women, underdeveloped areas and ethnic minorities. तो जो quota system था वो change होता रहा and it had freedom fighters also, a bit of them, women and other minorities also. Over the years, the quota system at times remained underutilized as the number of freedom fighters dwindled. अब देखो वो जो allegation था ना कि they are trying to misuse the quota system, वो allegation क्यों लगा? Let's understand. क्योंकि वो कह रहे हैं कि number of freedom fighters dwindled over the years and therefore possibilities of abuse of the quota arose. इसीलिए ये फीलिंग आई, ये मिसट्रस्ट आया, बिकॉज जेन्युइनली देयर वाज अ पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ अब्यूज और मिसयूज ऑफ द कोटा. The argument of the critics was that as long as Mukti Yodhas, freedom fighters, were young and seeking jobs, it was fair to give them reservation. After the Mukti Yodhas passed, their children have been getting reservation and jobs, and now the grandchildren of Mukti Yodhas are also going to benefit from the revived quota system. Dwindle का मतलब होता है कोई चीज जब ड्रॉप होती है. When something dwindles, it decreases. Okay, so dwindle is to decrease. तो अभी जो क्रिटिक्स है उनका बहुत ही वैलिड आर्ग्यूमेंट है. उन्होंने बोला कि देखो वो जो फ्रीडम फाइटर्स थे, अगर वो अभी had they been alive and they were seeking a job, then you could give them reservation. That was fair and square. But then आप क्या करो, उनके डिसेंडेंट्स को भी दे रहे हो, तो उनके बच्चों को भी रिजर्वेशन मिल चुका है और अब आप उनके पोता पोती भी रिजर्वेशन पा रहे हैं. I mean, what is this? At times when the families were not available, there were suspicions that the quota was extended to party operatives of Miss Hasina's Awami League. Now, this is very important. ठीक है, स्टॉर्म एंड पीआरएक्स, आई होप ड्विंडल क्लियर हो गया है. ड्विंडल का मतलब होता है डिक्रीज होना, बहुत कम हो जाना. ठीक है, सो अब वो कह रहे हैं कि जब फैमिलीज अवेलेबल नहीं होती थी उन फ्रीडम फाइटर की, तो ये एलिगेशन है, ये सस्पिशन है. सस्पिशन है मतलब शक है कि ये कोटा किसको दिया जा रहा था? आवामी लीग, जो शेख हसीना की ही पार्टी है, उन्हीं के लोगों को. क्यों? ताकि वो गवर्नमेंट फंक्शनरीज में बने रहें, ताकि वो ब्यूरोक्रेट्स बने रहें, वो गवर्नमेंट सेटअप्स में बने रहें और उनकी पार्टी का काम करते रहें. ओके. Bangladesh's political system has been dominated by Miss Hasina and the Awami League for a long time. There has been a growing sentiment among opposition parties and critics that the quota for freedom fighters was essentially an attempt to create a group of close supporters for the Awami League within the bureaucracy or civil service who would perpetuate the Awami League's rule. यही जो मैंने आपको अभी समझाया कि ये फीलिंग थी कि यार ये अवामी लीग के रूल को आगे बढ़ाना चाहते हैं, इसलिए वो चाहते हैं कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा गवर्नमेंट्स में ऐसे ये लोग आ जाएं. ठीक है, हमारी ही पार्टी के लोग बैठे रहें. This is one of the main reasons that prompted the students to launch the quota reform movement after the government filed an appeal with the appellate division of the court. ठीक है, all right. This was one major reason for this entire chaos. Why does the government feel strongly about the freedom fighters quota? I think ये काफी repetitive है कि उन्होंने अपने जो फादर शेख मुजीब उनका जो एजेंडा था उसी को अडॉप्ट किया, उसी के हिसाब से उन्होंने किया है. और उनको लगता है that all those people who survived the torture camps and all that, it's her duty, as she's the daughter of Sheikh Mujib, she has to provide a reservation to them. Her previous negotiations have indicated that she suspects that by criticizing freedom fighters, critics and students are allowing themselves to be used as a Trojan horse of opposition parties such as Bangladesh Nationalist Party and Jamaat Islami. अब यही प्रॉब्लम होती है सारी गवर्नमेंट्स की कि जैसे ही उनकी किसी भी स्कीम के खिलाफ अनरेस्ट होता है, प्रोटेस्ट होता है, तो उनको लगता है that these people are simply ploys of the opposition parties. तो उनको लग रहा है अभी शेख हसीना को that these students are being manipulated and they are being used as a Trojan horse by the opposition parties. What is perpetuate? Perpetuate is to carry forward something. कोई चीज को आगे बढ़ाना, perpetuate. We should perpetuate our traditions, but not superstition. There's something which is superstitious, we should not perpetuate it, right? I didn't get your query PRX. मेरे को समझ नहीं आ रहा बोलना क्या चाह रहे हो. Okay, so here Trojan horse बन जाओगे आप, आपको यूज किया जा रहा है, you like strategically to achieve any end. Okay, trying to manipulate or trying to deceive people. How does the student movement reflect the political landscape? Sheikh Hasina won the January election that was boycotted by BNP, who wanted the election to be conducted under a caretaker government. The Awami League's position towards the quota for freedom fighters indicates that the party feels that Jamaat and the BNP are using the movement to embarrass her and show that her electoral victory did not reflect the anti-incumbency sentiment that is raging in the country. तो यही है कि जनवरी इलेक्शन वो जीत गई शेख हसीना. ओके, ये जो ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज थी ये चाहती थी कि एक बहुत ही न्यूट्रल सेटअप में ये काम हो, उनके हिसाब से कुछ दाल में काला चलता रहता है इलेक्शन के टाइम पे. फाइन. और इस मुद्दे को एक तरह से वो उछाल रहे हैं, ये शेख हसीना को लगता है. ओके, एंड एंटी इनकम्बेंसी का मतलब क्या होता है? द इनकम्बेंट हेड्स जो हैं उनके खिलाफ हवा चल रही है. That means people are against the incumbent PM. Incumbent कोई होता है, इसका मतलब क्या होता है? They are in power. तो she is the incumbent PM, right? So उनके खिलाफ sentiment चल रहा है. People are not happy with her. Okay. The appellate division of the Supreme Court now has drastically cut the quota for freedom fighters. अब Supreme Court ने अपनी latest ruling में क्या कर दिया? 30 से 5% पे ले आए कि भैया बहुत ज्यादा होता है. 30% has been slashed to merely 5%. Okay, and they have finally addressed the concern of the protesting students. There's also talk that Ms. Hasina may constitute a commission that will work on creating a more representative quota system. ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि अब they may try to work out the quota system even in a better way, making it more inclusive. However, she has not yet indicated whether she would be willing to engage with opposition parties who have also participated in the anti-quota protest. फील स्ट्रांगली मतलब जब आप कोई चीज बहुत ही इंटेंसली आपको महसूस हो रही है, वी फील स्ट्रांगली दैट दिस कोटा सिस्टम इज अनफेयर और दिस इज बीइंग मैनिपुलेटेड, राइट? दिस इज द मीनिंग ऑफ द वर्ड फील स्ट्रांगली. Okay, to feel strongly about something. So we're done with this, and now we move to a very important thing, हमारा analysis, जो मैं आपको अपनी slides के through कराती हूँ. चलिए. So this is your editorial on the student protests in Bangladesh. Okay, तो चलो ठीक है. Main idea इसका क्या है? Thank you, Purva. I'm so glad. You find me a great teacher. Thank you so much. You made my day. Okay, what's the main idea? मुद्दा क्या है? मेन बात क्या है? देखते हैं जरा क्या मेन बात कर रहा है वो. The student protest in Bangladesh against the government job quota system, which reserves significant positions for descendants of freedom fighters, have created a major political crisis for PM Sheikh Hasina. Supreme Court's intervention to reduce these quotas has intensified the unrest, highlighting the tension between historical legacy and demands for merit-based opportunities. फाइन, तो वही पूरा अच्छे से क्रक्स ऑफ द मैटर उसने बता दिया कि ये फ्रीडम फाइटर के लिए जो रिजर्वेशन था वो बहुत प्रॉब्लमैटिक हो रहा है, स्टूडेंट्स अनरेस्ट बढ़ रहा है. फाइनली सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज इंटरवीन. टोन्ड एनालिटिकल भी है, लेकिन ऑब्जेक्टिव सेपरेटली मैंने इसमें लिखा है बिकॉज ऑथर ने कोई जजमेंट या कोई भी ओपिनियन, अपनी पर्सनल ओपिनियन नहीं शेयर की है. So this can be called a through and through factual passage because there are only facts. This is a very neutral discussion of the matter. The author has nowhere criticized or appreciated. The author has not taken any sides. The author has put up things in a very neutral manner. ठीक है, hence it is objective in nature. But analytical तो है. I think by now you know analytical, it's a very common tone कि एनालिसिस हो रहा है इस मुद्दे का कि यार ये जो इतना अनरेस्ट है, जो प्रोटेस्ट है, ये क्यों हो रहा है, व्हाट आर द कॉजेस, व्हाट्स द रीजन व्हाई शेख हसीना इज सो एडमेंट अबाउट इट, what are the concerns of the protesters, what are the critics saying. So the author has put up the entire scenario in front of us. He has analyzed, he has dissected, he has examined all the aspects of the matter, and then has finally come up with a complete, I would say, a kind of a documentary or a reportage of this matter. Domain or genre, this is news analysis, or you can even say political reportage because this is a political angle to it. तो जब भी कोई मुद्दा है, कोई न्यूज है, उसके अराउंड एनालिसिस हो रहा है कि ये क्या हो रहा है और ये क्यों हो रहा है और इसकी वजह क्या है और उसका इफेक्ट क्या होगा, तो वो न्यूज एनालिसिस हम उसको कह सकते हैं. ठीक है ना? इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट्स हैं ये कुछ. Quota system, controversial system, reserve 30% of government jobs for descendants, right? Smaller percentages for other groups. Protest, students are protesting after High Court ruling demanding merit-based opportunities. Government response kya hai? Sheikh Hasina initially abolished quotas but faced renewed protest after court restored them in 2024. Supreme Court decision, उन्होंने reduce कर दिया to 5% और reduce कर दिया 93% of the merit. फ्रीडम फाइटर्स कोटा को लेकर सेंसिटिव इशू है, टाइड टू बांग्लादेश इंडिपेंडेंस हिस्ट्री. क्रिटिक्स का लेकिन ये मानना है दैट दिस इज बीइंग एक्सप्लॉइटेड फॉर पॉलिटिकल गेन्स बाय द आवामी लीग. पॉलिटिकल इम्पैक्ट, इससे उनकी अथॉरिटी जो है वो अंडरमाइन होती है. ऑलरेडी इन्फ्लेशन और अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट का प्रॉब्लम है. ऑपोजिशंस आर आल्सो leveraging or increasing the protests. Violent clashes बहुत ज्यादा हो रहा है, especially after such an insensitive and intemperate comment of calling the protesters as traitors. Okay, and a lot of police crackdown is taking place. Finally, the future steps. एक कमीशन बनेगा जिसपे और डिस्कशन होगा about the nature of the quota system, intending to make it more representative, more inclusive. But engagement with opposition parties not very clear, right? So that were the main points. If you read a passage in a manner that you're able to identify and remember the important ideas, if not all the facts, at least the key highlights. If you remember, I think you're already a very active reader and a good reader. Okay. Finally, vocabulary vortex, Trojan horse, a deceptive tactic used to gain access or achieve a hidden agenda. ये टैक्टिक है, ये जहां पे आप चीट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हो और कोई आपका हिडन एजेंडा है. ठीक है, जैसे एक पैसेज में उन्होंने कैसे यूज किया, अंडरमाइन इज टू वीकन. ठीक है, तो अंडरमाइन के लिए हम ये भी बोल सकते हैं टू रीबट समथिंग. फाइन. टू वीकन, टू चैलेंज, राइट. रिप्यूडिएट भी बोल सकते हैं as the synonyms. The opposition party's support for the student protest was criticized as a Trojan horse intended to undermine the government while appearing to champion reform. Deceptive ploy, undercover strategy. Emotive. Anything that evokes or brings up or carries forward strong feelings or emotions. It describes content or expressions that stir emotional responses, जो आपको एकदम जज्बाती कर देगा. Anger, sympathy, passion वगैरह. The speech was highly emotive, drawing tears from the audience with its heartfelt stories and appeals. Stirring, moving, passionate, emotional. Take the screenshots, class, and record all these words in your diary. Precipitate, to cause something to happen suddenly or unexpectedly. The sudden drop in stock prices precipitated a financial crisis that affected the entire market. कुछ सडनली हो जाना, करना. ट्रिगर, कैटलाइज, इंस्टिगेट, स्पार्क, कॉज. वेरी नाइस सिनोनिम्स. स्पैंड, कोई चीज स्पैन कर रही है, फैल रही है, कंटिन्यू कर रही है. टू एक्सटेंड ओवर अ पीरियड ऑफ टाइम और अक्रॉस अ रेंज ऑफ एरियाज. Her career spanned more than 4 decades. 40 years तक उसका करियर चला है, during which she made significant contributions to science and education. Synonyms: extended, covered, stretched, bridged, encompassed. ठीक है. Atrocities, zulm, zyati, being very cruel or violent, often inflicting harm or suffering. The perversity of the teenager was evident. Acha, here the sentence miss raha isme. Fine. The atrocities committed by the Pakistani army on Bangladeshi men and women is now being balanced by giving them the quota. Okay. So kahin na kahin they are trying to make up the entire thing. Horrors, crime, violence, torture, barbarity. Perpetuate. I'm so sorry, PRX will not be able to find these presentations, but you can take the screenshot. आपको पूरी स्लाइड की तो जरूरत है नहीं. देखो, आपको सिर्फ जरूरत पड़ेगी वोकैबुलरी वैल्यूज की, तो उसका तुम दो क्विक सा स्क्रीनशॉट लो और बस बढ़िया अपनी एक डायरी बनाओ और उसमें वर्ड्स एंटर करो, है ना. ऐसे रोजाना अगर आपने 15 भी वर्ड सीख लिए, मैं तो कह रही हूँ 10 भी सीख लिए विथ सिनोनिम्स, तो यू ऑलरेडी डूइंग अ वंडरफुल जॉब, है ना. जिसमें से 6 8 10 तो मैं ही बता देती हूँ. Perpetuate, to cause something to continue or endure. कोई चीज को आगे बढ़ाना. जरूरी नहीं है कि undesirably हो, अक्सर ऐसा होता है, but very often. The film's portrayal of stereotypes served to perpetuate outdated views and biases. It continued, it spread forward. इस चीज को perpetuate करना. Sustain, continue, preserve. ठीक है class. So that was all for today. It was a lengthy article, no doubt. Next time I'll try to take up 2 shorter articles tomorrow. क्योंकि लंबा था तो एक ही करवा पाए, कल कोशिश करूंगी 2. अभी आजकल बहुत लंबे लंबे आर्टिकल्स आ रहे हैं, मैं भी क्या करूं. I'll take up 2 shorter articles and मिलते हैं कल दोबारा. I will continue hoping that you will work on your vocabulary, that you will take the notes, that you will revise the words. Try using the words, class. Read a lot. You can definitely learn English. English is easy. It's not difficult. Chalo, theek hai. So with this wonderful, encouraging thought, let's call it a day. Bye bye. Take care.